Want to know how to grow some big and beautiful eggplants and grow a lot of them? Well, stay tuned. Hey everybody, so let's talk about growing eggplants. Eggplants are a wonderful and abundant plant. If you're a first-time grower, I would definitely recommend you give these a try. It's not very complicated and it's really similar to growing tomatoes because they're in the same family. They're in the nightshade family. When do we get started sowing these seeds? You want to sow your seeds or start them indoors 6 weeks before your average last frost date. Don't plant them outside until the temperatures at night are 50 degrees or higher. They do not like cold temperatures. These crops love warm weather so much that last week when the temperatures were in the 100-degree range in my zone, which is zone 9A, 9B, they were basically the only plant that was still thriving. When you're growing eggplants, think about it like you're growing a tomato plant. They're in the nightshade family and they like pretty much all the same conditions. They like no less than 6 hours of sunlight a day. Make sure that you're planting them in the sunniest part of your garden if possible. These are getting anywhere between 8 and 9 hours of direct sun a day. They are slightly drought tolerant, but definitely don't make a habit out of it, because if you don't water them a lot and they get in a habit of being drought tolerant, what's going to happen is that fruit is going to become really bitter, because that plant is going to start sending signals that, hey, this is my only fruit that I have left and I need to make sure that it goes to seed and reproduces. So I'm going to make it more bitter so that other animals and things like that don't want to eat me. So one of my favorite things about eggplants is that they're purple. And just like beets or purple carrots, purple beans, purple basil, any type of a purple fruit or vegetable, they are high in antioxidants. The specific antioxidant is called an anthocyanin, which really helps fight off damaging cells in the body, aka helping fight off cancers and things like that. Definitely incorporate more purple fruits and vegetables in your diet. Keeping these plants healthy, what do they like? They like a good amount of fertilizer. What I did is I planted them in a nutrient-rich soil and compost mix, and I also added some Job's fertilizer at the beginning of the season. You don't have to over-fertilize eggplants, but they definitely need that kickstart of nutrients to really start growing. It does take anywhere between 4 and 5 months to start seeing these plants fruiting, and you want to really give them that nutrients and the energy that they need. After the initial fertilizer, which is the Job's fertilizer, every 3 weeks or so I like to give it a little bit of like a maintenance fertilizer and nutrient kick. What I refer to as my witch's brew consists of fish fertilizer, which is loaded with lots of nutrients, and it's going to continue to fertilize your plants, nitrogen, phosphate, just so much stuff, and it is water soluble. I add the fish fertilizer, the Epsom salt, which is really great for your plants. It is a lot of sodium in there, and that gives them that energy kick. I also put neem oil, so I put about a tablespoon of neem oil in there as well. If you are purchasing neem oil, always get a cold pressed neem oil. So it's a tablespoon of all three of these things that I put in a 1 gallon watering container, and I water at the base. So I know most people are really used to hearing about neem oil and applying it all over the leaves, but for me, I found that with eggplants, ants have been a huge culprit of really breaking these plants down and making them very weak. Applying this at the base makes it so it starts to hurt those ant colonies. You don't want ants all over your plants, because what they're going to do is they bring the aphids, and the aphids in turn, they suck all of the sweet sap and nutrients out of the plant, making it super susceptible to other predators such as flea beetles, for example. So it's a whole cascade of effects, which is why I like to apply the neem oil at the base along with my other things that are meant to help enrich them and make them even stronger. If you do see something such as flea beetles on top of that, then I would start to apply your neem oil in the traditional application method all over the leaves. Spacing. So with my eggplants, I actually have 4 of them in a raised bed that's about 3 feet wide by 3 feet wide. I could have definitely put a 5th one in the middle if I wanted to. These plants, they kind of become little trees and they get really hardy and pretty big. It is suggested to space them out about 24 inches apart, but personally I would say at least 12 inches of space is necessary. So what type of a variety to pick for your specific climate? For me, I'm growing the Black Beauty eggplant, and I'm also growing the long purple eggplant. We have a much longer growing season because I'm in zone 9A, 9B, so our season's going to be much longer. We can grow bigger eggplants and it's not going to cut into the amount of harvest that I'm going to get because our season's longer. I would suggest if you live somewhere that has a shorter season to grow one of the Chinese varieties of eggplants, because those varieties are thinner typically, or they're smaller, and the plant's going to reproduce a lot more of those. It's going to take a lot less time to grow those specific fruits too. So if you want to maximize the amount of eggplants that you're going to be harvesting, if you're in a colder climate, I would grow a smaller variety. So when are these ready to harvest? That's a big question. From seed to harvest, it's about 4 to 5 months. It's not a very quick turnaround, but before you know it, you'll have more eggplants to harvest than you know what to do with it. A good indication is when you press on the eggplant, it is going to have a little bit of give to it. You're going to see a little bit of a fingerprint in there. That's how you know that particular eggplant is ready to harvest. If it is still really firm and there's no give to it, that means that individual fruit is not ready to harvest. Also, if it's still really shiny in texture, that means it's a really good eggplant and ready to eat. If it's starting to dull, that means that it has over ripened, and you definitely want to pick that right away. Another thing to keep in mind is, just like with zucchini, you can pretty much harvest them as soon as they come out of the flower. You don't have to wait until they're like fully ripened. You can harvest them at any time. It's just there's always going to be that ideal window of when you should pick them and when you should enjoy them. You might be asking, okay, all of that information is great, but what do I do once I have an abundance of eggplants? How do I cook with these? Eggplants, there are so many different recipe options, such as eggplant parmesan, eggplant lasagna, a baba ganoush. You can grill them. They're excellent grillers. You can saute them. I'm actually going to be posting lots of different eggplant recipes as I'm cooking with them on my YouTube. So definitely be sure to hit that subscribe button if you want to see more and not miss out on any of those recipes. Thank you so much for watching. Until next time.